Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something huge, really. Something that, well, it drives a lot of modern anxiety, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. We're talking about the chase for fame, for recognition, for leaving a lasting legacy.
Exactly. And we're going deep into the Stoic perspective, pulling mainly from thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus to ask, is this whole pursuit not just exhausting, but maybe fundamentally irrational?
That's the core question. It's a powerful counter-narrative to, well, almost everything our culture tells us, right? Social media, history itself, it all pushes this idea that your life's meaning is tied to external validation. How many followers, how big your impact, how long your name lasts.
But the Stoics, they had a very different take.
A radically different take. We're here to unpack their argument that chasing this kind of eternal recognition isn't just pointless, it's actually destructive to living a good life now.
And our main guide here is, ironically, someone who achieved maybe the biggest legacy imaginable, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius.
Right. He's writing his meditations literally from the throne, the peak of power, yet he's constantly reminding himself how fleeting renown actually is.
So our mission in this deep dive is pretty clear. We want to explore why the Stoics believed a good life means focusing entirely inward on the quality of this present moment and really truly disconnecting from what future people might think or remember.
And Marcus Aurelius gets right to the heart of it with this almost chilling observation about how names and words just fade. He knew history deeply.
He points out that names totally familiar in his time, names needing zero explanation back then, eventually become obscure. They need historians like us to even explain who they were.
Yeah, let's dig into that because it's what you called the shocking truth of oblivion. He wasn't listing obscure figures. He named people who were absolute giants in Roman history and consciousness.
Right. If I threw out names like Camillus, Caeso, Violates, Leonatus today, most people would draw a blank, wouldn't they? Footnotes, at best.
Exactly, but Camillus, he was practically revered as the second founder of Rome, saved the city from the Gauls. Think like a George Washington figure, maybe. Monumental.
And yet, Aurelius saw even that name starting to slip, needing context even in his own time.
And then he lists Scipio and Cato. Okay, more familiar to us, perhaps, central figures of the Roman Republic. But even their significance, the details of why they mattered, gets lost on most people today. They become just names from history class.
It's a powerful point. If the people who defined the Roman world, the very empire he ruled, are subject to this decay, what chance does anyone else have?
And he drives it home by including emperors. His own predecessors, Augustus, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, his adoptive father, he knew these divine rulers, these titans, would also fade.
They'd become old fables, as he put it, eventually just buried in oblivion.
That's the relentless logic. No external achievement, no matter how grand it seems in the moment, can really stand up against the sheer scale of time.
So the conclusion he draws is, well, it's pretty stark. He says flat out that most people are unknown and forgotten almost immediately after they die.
And his judgment on chasing that memory.
Eternal memory. 'Tis wholly vain and empty, just completely pointless.
Vain and empty. Okay, so if we accept that premise that oblivion is the guaranteed endpoint for everyone, then spending our one life desperately trying to grab onto that external, empty thing.
It really does seem irrational, doesn't it? Like pouring all your energy into building something on sand right before the tide comes in.
Precisely. It's the definition of misplaced effort.
And this leads us straight into the Stoic toolkit for dealing with this kind of anxiety. The absolute foundation. The dichotomy of control.
Yes, let's revisit that because it's crucial here. For listeners familiar with Stoicism, we need to go beyond just the definition. It's the cornerstone. Invest your energy only where you have complete control.
And the Stoics, especially Epictetus, were crystal clear on what that includes. Only our inner world, right?
Exactly. Our judgments, our opinions, our decisions, our choices. That faculty of moral will, they call prohairesis, how we interpret things. That's our domain.
Our sovereign territory.
Right. And everything outside that. It's subject to fortune, to luck, to other people, our body, our health sometimes, possessions, success, and critically for this discussion, our reputation.
Okay, that's the key. Reputation is external. It's not up to us.
It's fundamentally not up to us, and this is where the Stoics start to dismantle the anxiety around it.
I need to pause here, though, because people listening might think, hang on, I need a good reputation for my job, for my relationships. You can't just ignore it, surely.
Yeah.
Is Stoicism saying just withdraw and become a hermit?
Not at all. It's not about ignoring it. It's about where you place its value. It's about not defining your self-worth or your happiness by it.
Ah, okay. So don't tie your inner peace to something so volatile.
Exactly. If your happiness depends on your reputation, you've essentially handed over control of your well-being to, well, to the crowd, to gossip, to chance. If public opinion shifts or someone writes something negative or you just don't get the promotion, your inner state collapses.
That's handing over your freedom, isn't it? Being a slave to what other people think.
It's the definition of psychological slavery for a Stoic. They seek freedom, and that means freedom from the tyranny of external opinion.
My reputation depends on a million shifting factors I can't possibly manage. So defining myself by it. Yeah, I lose my peace.
This connects directly to how they categorize things, doesn't it? The indifference.
Absolutely. Let's bring in the idea of preferred indifference. Things like health, wealth, and yes, a good reputation, they are preferred. Of course, a rational person would prefer to have them rather than sickness, poverty, or a bad name.
Okay, so it's okay to prefer a good reputation.
Yes, but here's the crucial part. They are indifferent with respect to your virtue. They don't determine whether you can live a good moral life. So having a great reputation might make it easier to do good things, maybe. Like if you're respected, people listen, you can influence things.
It might make certain actions easier, yes. A respected person might find it easier to lead or persuade. But the lack of reputation, or even having a bad one, doesn't make virtuous action impossible. The goodness, the virtue, resides solely in your internal choice, your prohairesis, not in the external circumstance or resource.
So reputation is nice to have, but it's not a true good in the Stoic sense. Virtue is the only real good.
Correct. Reputation, honor, fame, they are external accessories, not the core substance of a good life.
Seneca, he had some sharp things to say about this, didn't he? About the irony of actually achieving that external success, like massive fame or wealth.
Oh, absolutely. He points out that chasing these things, these external rewards we think will bring freedom and happiness, often does the exact opposite. They bring a whole new set of burdens and pressures.
It sounds like a very modern description of burnout, almost.
It really does. Seneca observes that the rich and famous are often the least free people. They lack the one thing a Stoic prizes most: time for themselves, peace, quiet reflection.
Why? Because they're too busy managing it all.
Exactly. Managing their wealth, managing their reputation, attending events, dealing with demands, fighting off rivals. They become slaves to the very success they chased. They've lost their autonomy.
Successfully climb the ladder, only to find they're trapped on the top rung, buried in admin.
Something like that, yes. And what about the fear of criticism? The sting of a bad review or public disapproval? Seneca tackles that head on, too.
How does he frame that?
He basically dismisses it with this almost aggressive confidence. He asks rhetorically, what utter foolishness it is to be afraid that those who have a bad name can rob you of a good one. Meaning if your good name is based on genuine inner virtue, on your actual character, then external slander can't truly touch it. Someone can damage your public perception, maybe, which is external.
But they can't damage your actual character, which is internal and under your control.
Precisely. They can't steal your integrity unless you let them, unless you react in a way that compromises it.
That's a really powerful shield against criticism, if you can internalize it. And history seems full of examples where leaders forgot this, where they prioritized the external applause over internal principle.
Yes. The sources give us some potent cautionary tales about the political cost of chasing praise and managing reputation above all else. Let's look at Marius.
A Roman general. Quite successful, wasn't he?
Militarily, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But politically, he was constantly trying to play all sides. He wanted the approval of the powerful nobility, but he also desperately wanted to be popular with the common people.
Trying to please everyone. Always a dangerous game.
And it led him into a real mess during the Saturninus affair, a period of political turmoil. To try and maintain his standing with both factions, he ended up engaging in what the historians called a mean and dishonest action. He basically compromised his principles, flip-flopping based on who he thought could offer him more power or popularity at that moment.
He sacrificed his integrity for political expediency, driven by external validation.
Completely. His decision-making was corrupted by looking outwards, not inwards to his own principles.
And did it work? Did he manage to keep everyone happy?
Quite the opposite. It backfired spectacularly. He ended up making himself equally odious both to the nobility and commons.
Hmm?
By chasing external approval and sacrificing his internal compass, he lost the very thing he was seeking: a stable, respected position. He ended up distrusted by everyone.
A clear example of reputation management destroying actual reputation when detached from virtue.
Yeah.
What about Nicias? Another general, right?
Yes, Nicias presents a slightly different, maybe more subtle case of external opinion warping behavior. He was known for being incredibly cautious, almost pathologically so.
How did that relate to reputation?
Oh, well, sources suggest he deliberately avoided difficult or ambitious military campaigns, and when he did achieve success, he would meticulously attribute it all to luck, to fortune, rather than his own skill or strategy.
Why would he do that? Downplay his own achievements.
Purely to avoid envy. He was apparently terrified of stirring up envy among his peers and rivals in Athens. So his fear of external opinion specifically, the negative opinion of envy, directly influenced his strategic and political choices. He held himself back.
Wow. So he consciously limited his potential, compromised his effectiveness, just to manage how others might perceive his success. He shrank himself preemptively.
It's a fascinating case. Now contrast that with someone like Simon. Simon did achieve great public acclaim. He got the inscriptions, the monuments, the public adoration, peak external recognition.
So he got what Nicias was afraid of.
He did. But even at his moment of maximum glory, the fickleness of public opinion immediately showed itself. Plutarch notes that people almost instantly started comparing him to other generals, specifically Miltiades, who had previously been denied a similar honor because he hadn't won his victory alone.
So even when you get the prize, people immediately start qualifying it, comparing it, finding reasons why it's not quite enough or someone else deserved it more.
Exactly. The goalposts are always shifting. Public adulation is inherently unstable and comparative. You reach the summit and someone points to a higher imaginary peak or reminds you of someone who fell just short. It's never fully satisfying because it's external.
There's always a but.
Always a but. And this brings us to Lysander, the Spartan general. His story offers a different angle. It wasn't until after his death that people discovered he had lived in relative poverty despite his power and success.
And what was the reaction to that discovery? Pity, disdain.
Surprisingly, no. The sources say his poverty actually made his merit shine brighter. It highlighted that his true worth, his leadership, his character, his achievements had existed completely independently of wealth or status. In fact, maybe his lack of riches made his virtue more obvious, less clouded by the usual trappings of power.
That's a powerful reversal. His lack of external markers of success actually enhanced his legacy posthumously.
It underscores the core Stoic point. True worth is internal and often obscured by, or at least independent of, external fortune.
Okay, so if the whole social arena, the chase for fame and reputation, is inherently unstable, fickle, and ultimately maybe even corrupting, where do we turn? Marcus Aurelius suggests we need to change our perspective. A big one.
A cosmic one, really. This moves us into section 2, adopting the cosmic perspective to shrink the ego and its anxieties.
He had this specific mental exercise, didn't he? The view from above.
Yes, the great height exercise. He urged himself and us to visualize looking down on the Earth from a vast distance, like an astronaut looking back, an experience now known to provoke the overview effect.
And when you take that imaginary vantage point, what happens to our earthly concerns?
They shrink dramatically. Those great cities we build our lives around, tiny specks, the bustling lives within them, all the human drama, the ambitions, the worries about status and legacy, they seem practically nothing from that height.
It puts our frantic activity into a vast, almost indifferent context.
Exactly. And it's crucial to understand this isn't meant to be nihilistic. It's not saying nothing matters. It's a deliberate psychological tool.
A tool for what?
To break the spell of the ego's inflated sense of self-importance. It's a visual, visceral reminder that everything mortal, including our precious reputation, our achievements, our very lives, are just tiny parts of these huge, ongoing, successive waves of change and alteration, moving at incredible speed.
It connects to a...
That's the stark reality Marcus Aurelius wants us to face. He explicitly tells himself to examine what each thing is, from its seed to its death, of what material is composed and into what it must be resolved. He wants us to see the mechanics without illusion.
See ourselves as just temporary assemblies of elements.
Right. And his conclusion from that is that death itself is nothing terrifying. It's simply the resolution of those elements, of which every creature is composed, a natural process.
Like taking apart Lego bricks to build something new. The bricks themselves don't suffer.
That's a good analogy. Since the elements themselves suffer nothing by this perpetual recycling, our individual dissolution shouldn't be a source of fear or desperate clinging. It's just how the cosmos works.
Okay, so accepting this cosmic perspective, this inevitability of change and dissolution, what's the practical benefit? How does it help with the fame obsession?
The huge benefit is that it throws into sharp relief how we're spending the present moment, the only time we actually have.
Because if we're constantly worried about the future, about legacy, about what people will think after we're gone, we're not actually living now.
Exactly. Or we're stuck in the past, regretting things. Seneca has some incredibly sharp words for the person living this way, the preoccupied man, always focused elsewhere.
What does Seneca say about them?
He says, quite brutally, that for the preoccupied person, living is their least important activity. Think about that. They're so busy managing future expectations, chasing goals, dealing with the demands of their supposed success.
That they're essentially taken up with doing nothing truly meaningful in the present. They're distracted from the actual experience of being alive.
Yes. And the real tragedy Seneca highlights is that these people often only realize the value, the sheer preciousness of life when it's almost over. They wake up at the end and realize they missed it, busy planning for a future memory that might never happen or won't matter anyway.
They spent their life's capital investing in a posthumous reputation instead of present experience and virtue.
And Seneca drives this point home by arguing that time itself adds nothing to the finer things in life. A virtuous act is virtuous now. Its value is inherent in the moment it's performed.
It doesn't become more virtuous if it's remembered centuries later.
No. And it's no less virtuous if it's completely forgotten by tomorrow. The moral quality resides entirely in the present action and the intention behind it, not in its future reception.
So how do we avoid this trap of preoccupation? If chasing future fame is the wrong path, what's the right one? Is it just about seeking pleasure now?
No, not just pleasure, but meaningful engagement with the present. Seneca suggests that a life spent actively exploring the variety, majesty, and sublimity in the world around us, nature, human interaction, the practice of philosophy and virtue, that kind of life can never fall victim to ennui, that deep weariness of existence.
Okay, so boredom or existential dread comes from what exactly?
Seneca identifies two main causes. One is idle and inactive leisure, basically. Having free time but not using it for anything meaningful or engaging, just drifting.
Okay. And the second?
The second, and this is critical for our topic, is measuring life by pleasures which through their empty nature are incapable of completeness.
And fame, excessive luxury, constantly seeking external validation. Those would fall squarely into that category of empty pleasures.
Absolutely. They're incapable of providing lasting satisfaction because they're external, dependent on others, and fundamentally disconnected from our inner state of being. They can't fill the core need for meaning and virtue.
Right. So we've dismantled the chase for external fame. We've seen that it's based on things outside our control, subject to inevitable oblivion, and a distraction from living well now. So, Section 3, where do we find true worth? What constitutes a real internal legacy?
The Stoics are very direct about this. They argue that the one thing that truly adheres to a person, the only thing that follows them beyond the dissolution of the body, the only genuinely permanent aspect of the self, is philosophy.
And again, we need to be clear. They don't mean philosophy as just reading books or debating ideas in a classroom.
No, absolutely not. They mean philosophy as a lived practice, a daily moment-to-moment commitment to a way of being.
So what does that practice actually consist of?
For the Stoics, it means constantly working to preserve the inner spirit, the core self, from all manner of contumelies and injuries, and crucially, keeping it independent from the pull of pains or pleasures. It's about building an unshakable inner citadel.
Maintaining that internal fortress against external chaos. Marcus Aurelius actually gives a kind of checklist for the qualities needed to build and maintain that fortress, doesn't he? The components of this internal legacy.
He does. He lays out 4 key pillars for the soul's disposition in the present moment. First, the soul must be fundamentally just.
Okay, fairness, integrity.
Second, our actions must be social, meaning they should contribute positively to the community, to the common good. We're inherently social creatures.
Right, not just navel-gazing. Action-oriented towards others.
Third, our speech must be entirely sincere. No deception, no manipulation, speaking truthfully and plainly.
Honesty in communication. And the last one. This feels like the toughest.
It is. The disposition must be such that we cheerfully embrace whatever happens. This is amor fati, the love of fate. accepting external events, even difficult ones, as necessary, as flowing from the nature of the universe, from those divine springs or natural causes, recognizing our control lies only in our response, not the event itself.
Cheerfully embrace. That's a high bar. It seems hard enough just to neutrally accept things sometimes.
It is the ideal,
Right.
certainly, but it points towards radical acceptance as the path to inner peace.
Okay, so if I start trying to live this way, justly, socially, sincerely, accepting fate, how do I share this without, sounding like I'm preaching or judging others who are still caught up in the external chase?
That's where Epictetus offers some brilliant practical advice. He insists the best way to advocate for Stoicism isn't by talking about its theories,
But by.
by living it, by embodying the principles in your actions. Actions speak far louder than philosophical lectures. He emphasizes the behavioral evidence.
What does that evidence look like on the ground, day to day? How would someone know you're practicing this?
It would show up in how you handle adversity. You'd be noticeably less prone to anger, frustration, or impatience when things go wrong. You'd become a better listener, genuinely hearing others rather than waiting to talk about yourself. You'd be a more reliable, patient friend. You'd demonstrably care more about others' well-being and the common good than about your personal status or getting ahead.
So it's not about announcing, I am a Stoic. It's about people noticing a difference in your character and your reactions. Maybe they ask, how do you stay so calm? Or what's your secret?
Exactly. The lived example is the most powerful teaching tool. It makes the philosophy attractive because people see its positive effects in action.
So the real value, the real legacy, is something wholly confined to one's inner self.
Precisely. And there's that incredible, almost legendary story that perfectly illustrates this. The story of Stilbo.
Right, the philosopher whose city was destroyed.
Yes. Stilbo lived in Megara. The city was conquered and basically razed to the ground by Demetrius, a Macedonian general nicknamed Polyarchides the city sacker. A brutal campaign.
And Stilbo lost everything.
Everything external. His home was destroyed, his wife and children were lost, presumed dead in the chaos. Demetrius, the conqueror, apparently found Stilbo standing amidst the ruins and, maybe mockingly, maybe genuinely curious, asked him if he had lost anything valuable.
Wanting to rub it in, perhaps? To see the philosopher broken?
Possibly. But Stilbo's response was the ultimate statement of Stoic resilience and internal focus. He looked at Demetrius and said, simply, I have all my valuables with me.
Wow. Meaning his inner self, his character, his virtue, those were untouched.
Exactly. He was referring to his just mind, his good character, his philosophical understanding, his prohairesis, his faculty of choice. And crucially, as the accounts emphasize, he was referring to the very fact of not regarding as valuable anything that is capable of being taken away.
He had already detached his sense of worth from external things, so their loss couldn't fundamentally harm his core self.
He transcended the catastrophe by maintaining the integrity of his inner fortress. It was truly unassailable because its treasures were internal.
That story perfectly captures the power of focusing inward. And you mentioned prohairesis again, that faculty of choice.
Yeah.
Epictetus really hammers this home, doesn't he? It's central to his teaching.
Absolutely central. We need to spend a moment on it because it's more than just making choices. Epictetus stressed the absolute autonomy of our volition, our prohairesis. He described it as inherently unimpeded, unconstrained, unhindered.
Unimpeded. But surely external things impede us all the time, like if someone threatens me.
Epictetus's insight is subtle but profound. He argues that no external force, not a tyrant, not poverty, not physical pain, can force your faculty of judgment to accept something as true when it knows it's false, or to not assent to what appears true. Your core judgment remains free.
Okay, but let's take the classic example. The mugger with a gun demanding my wallet. I feel pretty constrained. My choice feels forced.
Epictetus would say the gun isn't the constraint. The constraint, if you feel one, comes from your own judgment. He'd argue what actually compels you if you hand over the wallet is your decision that it is better to do something else, give the wallet rather than die.
So I'm weighing two internal aversions. The aversion to losing my wallet versus the aversion to potentially dying. The choice between those is still mine.
Yes, the power resides in your internal judgment about which aversion is stronger, which outcome you assent to as the preferred path under those circumstances. The external object, the gun, only gains power through your internal assessment of it and your attachment to what it threatens, your life in this case.
So what overcomes one impulse or aversion is always another internal impulse or aversion, never the external thing itself.
That's the core idea. This radical focus on the freedom of prohairesis is what leads to genuine unimpededness and serenity. Because if you train your judgments correctly, aligning them with nature and virtue, you only desire what is truly up to you, acting virtuously, and are accepting of what is not external events.
You end up doing and experiencing only what you truly want to do and experience internally, because you've redefined what want means, wanting virtue above all else.
Exactly. And this profound internal focus, this finding of meaning and freedom within, resonates surprisingly strongly with a much more modern psychological framework. Viktor Frankl's logotherapy.
Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust and wrote Man's Search for Meaning. How does his work connect here?
Frankl developed logotherapy based on his experiences in the concentration camps. He observed, incredibly, that even in the absolute depths of suffering and dehumanization, individuals could still find meaning and maintain a sense of inner freedom.
That sounds incredibly stoic, finding freedom, even when externally completely constrained.
It is. Frankl's core principle, the categorical imperative of logotherapy, is active responsibleness. It means recognizing that even in the worst circumstances, you still have the freedom to choose your attitude, your response. Every moment presents a choice towards a responsible goal, towards meaning.
That aligns perfectly with the Stoic focus on virtuous action in the present, regardless of external outcomes or future fame.
Absolutely. And Frankl emphasized that meaning isn't just found through thinking or philosophizing, it's discovered through actualizing values. He talked about creative values, what you give to the world, experiential values, what you take from the world, like appreciating beauty, and critically, attitudinal values.
Attitudinal values being how you face suffering.
Exactly. How you choose to bear unavoidable suffering or face your fate. That choice of attitude, Frankl argued, is often where the deepest meaning can be found. Your legacy, in a sense, becomes the dignity and courage you displayed in your response.
So the internal stance is everything. Frankl also talked about tension, didn't he?
Yes, the concept of fruitful tension. This is the gap between what is our current reality, our flaws, the world's imperfections, and what ought to be the ideal state, the values we strive for, the person we could become.
And he said trying to eliminate this tension is a mistake.
A huge mistake. He argued that this tension is essential for psychological health. It provides the orientation, the pull towards meaning. If you just passively accept things as they are or give up on striving for something better, like virtue, you lose the perspective needed to find deeper meaning.
So the Stoic commitment to justice, social action, and self-improvement maintains that vital, fruitful tension. It keeps us engaged and striving, even while accepting external fate.
Precisely. It's not about passive resignation to oblivion. It's about active, responsible engagement with the present moment, driven by internal values, knowing that the quality of that engagement is the reward, is the legacy, regardless of external recognition.
It really is a complete psychological reframing, isn't it? Turning away from the unreliable external world towards the reliable internal one.
And in doing so, it offers protection from that inevitable disappointment Marcus Aurelius warned us about, the certainty of being forgotten. If you never tied your worth to being remembered, then being forgotten doesn't hurt.
Right. So let's try and wrap this up. We began this deep dive looking at the Stoic argument that chasing fame and eternal legacy is fundamentally irrational because, well, oblivion is guaranteed for almost everyone.
Even the greatest names fade.
But the journey through their philosophy shows us something more profound. True worth isn't measured by column inches in history books or follower counts. It's measured by the quality of our character, the integrity of our actions, right here, right now.
In the present moment, which is ultimately the only thing we ever truly control.
That's the real locus of control, and therefore the only place to build a truly meaningful, unshakable sense of self-worth.
And perhaps we can leave you, the listener, with one final, slightly provocative thought, again from Seneca. He made this interesting observation that too much good fortune, too much easy success, can actually be bad for us.
Bad? How so? Don't we all want good fortune?
We think we do. But Seneca argued that constant ease and luxury don't test us. They don't provide the challenges necessary to forge real virtue. It's adversity, difficulty, struggle. Those are the conditions that cultivate patience, courage, resilience, temperance.
The very building blocks of that strong internal character we've been talking about.
Exactly. Those virtues are the core of an internal legacy that can't be shaken by external events. So here's the question Seneca implicitly raises. If great fame and wealth often bring, as he put it, unending luxury and insulate us from hardship.
Does actively chasing that kind of external success inadvertently undermine the very conditions needed to build the internal virtue that truly matters? Are we chasing something that prevents us from developing what we really need?
It's a challenging thought. Does the pursuit of external legacy actively sabotage the creation of internal worth? Something to definitely mull over.
A powerful question indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into fame, legacy, and the Stoic art of living in the present.